All right, welcome to my presentation. So my presentation topic for my paper is basically coral reefs and humans. I want to take a look at kind of a dive in on how humans and corals interact with each other, what negatives humans have had on coral reefs, what positives coral reefs have done for humans and what continue to do for humans, why they're important, and what we can do to try to protect them overall and try to help them rebound in the future. So to start off, I think it's important that we talk about what a coral reef actually is. So coral reefs are ecosystems, habitats around the world that include large quantities of coral. These are normally found in tropical regions across the world. In the United States, for example, some can be found in the Gulf of Mexico around Florida, Louisiana, Texas, not too close to Louisiana or Texas, mainly about 100 miles off the coast of those areas, but in the Gulf of Mexico as a whole. Also can be found around Hawaii, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, the American Samoa, and the Northern Mariana Islands. Um, Coral reefs are a very important habitat around the world. It is estimated that 25% of all marine life are dependent on these areas around the world at some point in their life. Now that means that they could live there for a little bit. Like there are some animals that will come to these areas, lay eggs, give birth, um, and then let them grow up in these areas as a way of having a protected upbringing. Some animals will come to these areas to feed. Some animals will live there their entire lives. But yeah, this is a large portion of the marine life as we know it that live and survive because of coral reefs. So, why are these areas important to people? Well, coral reefs provide food for people across the world, not just the people in those communities that have coral reefs. People will come to these areas to fish. People will fish for themselves in these areas. They will collect the fish, eat it themselves, sell it to people in their communities, sell it to restaurants in their communities, or they can sell it elsewhere, package it, store it, ship it out all across the world. People do tend to love seafood, not all people, but there are people around the world that do eat seafood. And as long as that there is a market for it, people will continue to do that. Coral reefs also promote tourism to areas that have these coral reef habitats. People will continuously try to come to these areas because they want to scuba dive, they want to snorkel, they want to see these environments for themselves. There are people that will come to these areas to fish for themselves, to try to get fish that they wouldn't be able to find in their areas. And also for people that can't snorkel or scuba dive, there's some places that will do tours, like on glass bottom boats, or in very small, they'll call them submarines, but they're not really submarines because you don't go all the way under the water. But these are all ways that these communities can help provide for themselves, and they do that off of the coral reefs. They also provide a natural protection in many cases from the elements. So, for natural disasters like tsunamis or hurricanes, in some cases, they will actually kind of provide a barrier for the water to not be able to damage too much of the shoreline, too much of the beaches themselves, as well as the roads, the houses. I'm not saying that they won't get damaged completely, but they won't be as bad due to the protection of these coral reefs. Also, there's scientific reasons for these to help out. One of them is that people have found new uses for medicine and even created new medicine by studying certain areas of coral reefs. They also provide oxygen for a large portion of the world, not just for the animals that live in these areas, but also for people. And of course, they provide natural beauty. So, as I've said, corals produce oxygen, and that might sound strange considering corals are an animal. Animals normally do not produce their own oxygen, they use oxygen, but they normally produce carbon dioxide. What coral have for them is that they actually have a type of algae that lives inside their tissue, as shown on the image on this slide. Uh, the type of algae that lives inside them is called zooanthely, and I'm sure I've pronounced that wrong, but that is the best I can do. Um, this algae is actually going to use photosynthesis just like plants do. But what they're going to do is that they are going to use the sunlight, the carbon that's around them. They are going to produce food for the coral. It helps the coral survive as a whole. It also helps the algae survive. But it's also going to produce oxygen, which will go into the water. That water, or that oxidized water, will help fish in the area be able to breathe, but will also help people, as oxygen in the water actually does help people. It does help give people oxygen. What is happening to the corals around the world? Corals are currently dying out. This can be from various different reasons, from colder temperatures during the winters, not enough sunlight during certain parts of the year, increased bacteria in the waters around coral reefs, as well as rising sea levels, to name a few reasons. Scientists have figured out, or in certain cases, just hypothesized. Um, Coral bleaching is one of the more well known ways that corals die out. Um, this is when corals cannot produce their own food or oxygen, and because of this, the algae inside them dies, it loses its color, and it becomes this pale bleach white, almost skeletal figure in the waters. So, are humans at fault? In part, yes. Humans do have impact on climate change, and climate change does seem to be one of the big factors in these die-outs of coral. Uh, because of climate change, temperatures have been changing. Some are really warm, sometimes it's very cold during the winter months, it seems. And so during these winter months, some of these coral reefs are not used to these cold temperatures, and that can cause the die-outs because they're just not built for that. We are seeming to get more severe storms, and that can be attributed, it seems, to climate change as well. In Texas a few years ago, uh, over a period of a few days, the coral reefs by the Texas part of the Gulf of Mexico experienced about 16 inches of rain that would fall over top of them. This also led to increased cloud cover, which prevented the sun from getting to the corals. And this actually led to a bacteria outbreak that ended up breaking down the coral and actually killing a lot of the coral permanently. Like there's no way that it could that other things could rebuild over top of it. So because of climate change, it does seem like uh, there's a bigger issue for these corals. So what can we do? Well, three easier things, I guess, that I could think of are one, to pollute less. Uh, we've probably been hearing this for years to stop polluting, try to protect our environments. And just because you don't think you're polluting doesn't mean you are completely. There are different ways that pollution happens. Runoff is still a real thing. If you've put fertilizer or different chemicals on your property, get washed away, can get into the water, can get into the ecosystems, and it can harm the corals. It can also cloud the water, which can again cause lack of sunlight to these corals. Another thing is that overfishing is a big issue. So establishing protected areas for coral reefs so that the overfishing can stop would be really beneficial. Fish really benefit from coral reefs. And the third thing is increased education and awareness about how important coral reefs are to people. I don't think everybody realizes how important they are. And if we can spread the awareness, get more educated about this could help. So thank you guys for watching and listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.